everyone. So I said about this many times before, that a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of hotels particularly, who are accommodating these asylum seekers are making a killing, literally off the back of people, and off the taxpayer, for you and me, the taxpayer who are paying our taxes. So it's €1 billion a year. So I think it's about 2.7 million or something like that a day, which is about that, yeah, about 2.7 million a day, per day. Think about that. Imagine how much you could do with that amount of money, 1 billion a year, or even 2.7 million. Imagine there's so many people on hospital waiting lists, waiting for treatment. There's, like my father was too, back in December, he was waiting 4 hours for an ambulance. They wouldn't pay paramedics. You imagine all that money, where it could go. And again, it's going to big developers. That's where it's going to. And it's going to big hotels. And you see yourself, there's loads of people who have hotels. They're making trillions of euro, hundreds of millions of euro, insane amount of money. I nearly would go as far as saying it's money laundering, because they're definitely not paying tax and stuff. It's just basically all seem to be a big money laundering scheme, to be told. In my opinion, it does. Because there's so many people making money, and it's not the only Joe that's making money. These big businesses are making huge money. So it's just kind of like a money laundering scheme. It's insane amount of money. And this is what they're telling us. You know, and I like, if you put in the social welfare payments, the people coming here seeking asylum, the social welfare payments, the medical cards, the transport cards, whatever, transport fees, etc., we could be looking at 3 billion a year. Let's put out 4 billion, 5 billion. This is what they're telling you. Again, they won't say the actual figure, because let's be fair, the actual figure is probably 5 billion a year. Like when you add in all the extras, etc., the whole, other stuff, transport fees, health expenses, all that. When you add that all in along with accommodation, it's a lot of money. We're talking about billions, like insane amount of money. And a lot of these people have no right to be here. A lot of these people who are seeking asylum at the moment, they're coming from Georgia, they're coming from Albania. There's no war and there's no conflict in Georgia. There's no war in Albania. I don't know why, and all of them are young men in their 30s, and there's no women and children. I wouldn't mind so much maybe Ukraine or other countries that are in war-torn situations. But a lot of people are turning up and don't need asylum. It's simple as that, and they're getting everything handed to them pretty much. And it has to be said, because it's the truth. And again, this amount of money could go to so much good use for the people of Ireland, the taxpayer. But again, there's so many Irish people struggling to pay the bill, struggling to pay the rent. I know so many young people who come out of college, who done their studies, who worked hard in college to get a degree, and when they come out, they simply can't afford to buy a house. They simply can't afford to rent a house even. And there's something very wrong there in society when we have young Irish people having to leave in their droves and everybody else comes in. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the logic of the modern day. But again, we have to take into his palatopine for this, because the state had to release it, because obviously you asked the question. But it is insane amount of money. It is insane amount of money. Like, when you really think about it, it's just insane. Just looking through it here, it's like when you this is what they're telling you, because again, the state doesn't want to tell you the exact figure. They're only telling us probably half of the figure, because again, they're not adding in the transport fees, other social welfare things, other benefits, etc., because there's a lot of stuff. They get free accommodation, obviously, and then there's other stuff. There's transport costs, and then there's health costs, and then there's other things too. I think in some regards, some of them do get mobile phone credit for free. Like the state funds that too, as far as I can get. There's loads of stuff. Like it's insane, and different things too. More other than other stuff too. But what I'm trying to say is, it's different if there was a time limit. Say they said in this article, Norma Foley said, the worst person to have is integration, just to say too. But say she said now, right, in this article, we're going to end all the asylum applicants next week. All of them are going home, right? We're not paying this amount of money anymore for them. Then that would be an end to it. It's pretty much what I'm trying to say. There's no beginning and end. There's a beginning of it, of course, but there's no end in sight. So when is this going to stop? Because if we add up, say it's, for argument's sake, it's 4 billion a year, right? If you add up 4 billion and 4 billion every year for the next 12 years, we could be looking at 50 billion. Going on to, God only knows, nearly 100 billion in 20 years' time. And who's going to flip the bill? That's what I'm trying to say. Who's going to flip the bill? The Irish people have to flip the bill. We bailed out the banks before. We have to bail out the country again if it goes like this, because the country can't sustain this. No country in the world, nearly, could sustain this amount of expenditure on this. And it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And especially because, again, there's so many people coming in, and they shouldn't be coming. Why are we taking in so many people and we can't afford? Well, we can't house them, first of all. We can't afford to keep them, etc., etc. Simple as that. And as we know ourselves, I don't even need to point out, there's people, literally Irish people sleeping on the streets, who can't afford to get any place, who can't get, the state's turned their back on them. They're Irish citizens, and there's no place at the inn for them. It doesn't make any sense. We could go on and on for an hour or two. But you get what I'm saying. But it's insane amount of money when you really sit down and think about it. Like, a lot of businesses are making huge profits. Again, it's 2.7 million per day. Think about that. That's an insane amount of money. 2.7 million. That's insane. Nearly 3 million. We could say by the end of this year it'll be 3 million. That's insane amount of money. Like, imagine how much good you could do, as I say, with HSE waiting lists, even in housing. Take, for example, another €1 billion in housing for people who are waiting on council waiting lists, etc., etc. There's one young woman in Dublin, I think, with 2 young children. She's waiting 10 years. She was young at the time, now she's in her 40s, but she's waiting 10 years for a council house. And still no word of a council house. And she's a young woman from Dublin, well, youngish now, but at the time she was, and she's still waiting. She's 2 young Irish children, and the council won't. Don't have the capacity to house them. We could go on and on and on, but it doesn't make any sense. It generally doesn't when you really sit down and think about it. Because it shouldn't be this many people coming in the first place anyway, to a small country. Because there's a huge demographic change in the population too, in a short period of time. We could go on like for hours, but it needs to be discussed. Because the Irish people, I'm sure, are disgusted that €1 billion has been spent on this. Because it only should be like whoever is needed, like at the moment. What I mean to say by that is people who are extremely desperate, people who are coming from both women and children mainly, not young men, etc., etc. Because that's what we're seeing: single men turning up, looking for help, etc., etc., looking for things, etc., etc. Like, it should be all women and children. That's what we've been told, and that's what it should be. People that are fleeing from Afghanistan, take for example, young women fleeing from Afghanistan. Or even Ukraine, as I say, but there should be nobody coming from Iraq and Georgia or Albania, but that's what's happening. That's who's turning up. It just doesn't make any sense. But let me know what you think. Again, this is only my freedom of expression. I'm just saying, as a taxpaying citizen, I'm not too impressed by this, to be told. I'd rather go to good use. Because at the moment there's a lot of people, and again, it has to be said, there's a lot of hotels making huge money on this. And it's kind of, to me, it's money laundering nearly at this stage, the amount of money they were spending. Thank you.